Welcome to Demolition Success Secrets, the podcast that's changing the game for demolition businesses everywhere. Ever wondered how a wrecking ball wielding industry can leverage digital marketing to dominate their market? Well, we've got the blueprints, strategies, expert guests, and more to show you how. Stay tuned, because we're about to blast through the barriers of your business.
All right, welcome guys. We have a very explosive guest today. Paul is on the line with us for another episode of Demolition Success Secrets. Welcome, Paul.
Hey, thanks. I appreciate it. Thanks for giving me a call. Opportunity.
I am about as far south in the U.S. as possible. I mean, I don't live in Miami. I'm in the Tampa area, St. Petersburg area. You are up in Canada. How is the weather today?
It's not too bad today. We've had a unique winter. Normally, we have a ton of snow where I live. We don't really this year, a few inches at the most. And it's been a very strange. I don't remember the last time we ever had a green Christmas, and it certainly wasn't green. It was more brown, but there was no snow on the ground for Christmas, which is extremely unique. But nonetheless, it's kind of settled in now, and we're in normal winter weather, but definitely colder than where you're at.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, today I wore a jacket, but I was also like right by the bay, looking over the water and stuff. And yeah, I give you guys credit. I don't know how you do it. I understand why you guys do it with family and, your life being in these certain places, but lots of credit and more credit to you with your business. So tell us how you got involved with what you do.
Sure. Yeah, I work, our company is called Rakowski Energetics, but realistically, we fall under the Rakowski group of companies. And, the main bulk of that company, it started back in 1964. So it's at 60-year mark. It's a third generation owned demolition company is what it was. And it's growing from there. But, it was one of those kind of American success stories, Canadian success stories, where, the hardworking immigrant came here and established himself with one truck and a strong back, and it grew itself throughout the generations into what it is today, which is a full suite of demolition, recycling, scrapyard, abatement, consulting, engineering, kind of a full suite company located right in the heart of Canada, right in Winnipeg, Manitoba, which is almost exactly center of the country. So, we can swing east, we can swing west, and it's a very good company, still family run with three brothers. My boss in the explosive division is one of the brothers, Tristan Rakowski, and Tristan runs the demolition side of the house. And then under that umbrella is the explosive portfolio, along with our kind of engineering and consulting with explosives and vibration monitoring.
Got it. Yeah, fun stuff. Very, very technical, I imagine.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we do have an explosive engineer on board as well, who's been doing this. He's classically trained engineer in the mining industry, but Ray's been an explosive engineer for, well, probably longer than you've been alive. And he still enjoys coming to work and doing that. So yeah, with his technical background and then just our experiences, it's a great job and lots of technical aspects to it. But at the end of the day, it's still a hands-on job, which is fun as well.
Got it. And you guys have been established in Canada. I know in our pre-interview you mentioned breaking into the U.S. market. What's kind of the game plan there? How's it been treating you guys so far? And how are you guys going to grow in the space?
Yeah, when we started the explosive division, we never, I don't think it was an aspiration at the genesis of the idea to have a new division. It wasn't really an aspiration to move into the U.S. It just happened kind of organically. What happened is, with the downward turn of coal and anything coal related, we started to get calls from all the main contractors in Canada, taking down a lot of the coal fire stuff, the demolition, the power plants, and anything related to coal. And realistically, we're kind of at this point, I would say we're one of the only options in in our country for any of the large scale complicated demolition designs, or explosive demolition designs. And so our phone started kind of ringing off the hook. Just so happened there were some major projects that all lined up, and so we had assembled a pretty impressive team of fellas with some diverse backgrounds in explosives. And then we started talking about the fact that maybe we should take this on the road a little bit, and then the idea just started to grow from there. And we wanted to go slowly and test the market in the U.S., but we did end up opening an American company. And then, there's the entire process of finding American experts and specialists, which we have, and partnering with them. And they came and trained with us. And so we're kind of we went to the NDA last year and opened up a booth there. And our reception, it's funny, Chayton, we weren't sure how we were going to be perceived as, a non-US entity. And we were a little bit hesitant, and I will tell you, it was the exact opposite. It was a great welcome and lots of excitement, which surprised us. And we got some really good contacts out of that. And we have gone live in the US with one small operation, and now we have a couple pretty substantial ones on the books. So it's a slow process, but it's an exciting process nonetheless.
That's amazing. And comedians, I was blending the word comedian and Canadian because I guess I'm thinking of all the great comedy geniuses you guys have brought to the world and to this country and your country. Canadians are like the sweetest people, and NDA are really kind, good people that are, driven and professional and things like that. I'll be where I used to live, San Antonio. Ironically, I now live in Florida. I'll be there for the 50th next month, which is crazy. It's kind of coming on our back any day now. It's crazy. Will you guys be there this year, or you got just so much stuff? Okay, so you guys will be there as well this year. Very cool.
Yeah, we made a commitment to kind of go the next few years. If you're starting out, you kind of have to. The NDA, you're absolutely right. Fantastic organization, but as a mid-sized demo company in Canada, we never really explored the NDA conferences in the past. It wasn't really a thing on our agenda. And then with this expansion move, we put our toe in the water, and we were, like I said, surprised at just how welcoming everyone was. And we really enjoyed our experience last year. And so, yeah, we will have a vendor spot as well, a booth at this year's, next month. Like you say, it is coming up, and I probably got a lot of things I should be doing to prep for that. But we'll see everybody there and have a good time, and we can look each other up and meet in person.
Yeah, very cool. And this may sound so silly. Is there an association for the business in Canada as well? I know there's an international. I know that there's a national. Is there a body in Canada that you guys are pretty close with, or?
Yeah, I think the NDA kind of overshadows everything. There is associations and whatnot, and the international one. We did go to the international conference in Toronto. I mean, it was in our country here recently, so at the end of last year. So we did go to that as well, and that was an eye-opening experience as well. Like I said, if you're not really on that circuit, then when you first go to it, it was kind of like, okay, we've been missing some of these opportunities, and so I think our eyes have been opened a little bit as to what the associations can do and how you can network and who you meet there and the business that's done there, to quite frankly.
Yeah, everyone says like the best business happens at the lunches, the drinking sessions, the parties.
Yeah, exactly.
I had talked to someone who was recently on the podcast, and he was like, "Hey, first beer's on me," and I was like, "That's so fun." Out of all the ways to go about it, it seems like a lot of associations, frankly, are like that. I've been involved with an apartment association in the past, and they were like, "Hey, one thing about us is we love to party. And if you don't love to party, you're not going to make as much as your counterpart who does."
Yeah.
That's so funny. Well, cool. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. What type of companies seek you guys out? What are their kind of requirements? What type of projects are they taking on? How often are they engaging with you once they engage with you? Tell me about your clientele.
Sure. So Rakowski Energetics is our subdivision and our company now in the US based company. We have no desire at this point or in the foreseeable future. We really have no desire to do any traditional demolition work in the US. We kind of got our hands full, and that market also, you guys have so many contractors down there and gifted and skilled contractors. So realistically, we are a subcontracting company with this specialty. So yeah, our main contractors will seek us out. When they do, it's traditionally for something that will require some consulting and then eventually a little bit of working either with their engineer or providing some engineering ourselves. And then the design of the explosive plan, we come up with that, obviously in working with our partners there and the engineering firms. So we will come up with the design, and then at the end of the day, it comes down to the implementation of that design. So when we actually go and put boots on the ground and strap on hundreds, thousands of pounds of explosives precisely placed to bring down these giant structures. So yeah, I would say who's seeking us out? It's traditionally a little bit larger main contractors who have some of these mega projects where explosive felling is kind of the only resort or only tactic left on some of these structures because of the way they're put together. So there's a lot explosives are there's a lot of jurisdictions who don't want to use explosives, and there's all sorts of there's all sorts of issues around dust and overpressure and noise, and which it can all be mitigated. But I would say that we may not be the last resort per se, but if you can do a top-down approach, I would say a lot of people would prefer to do that than use an explosive plan and have to deal with all the logistics and the public relations around that. However, once explosives is a tool that's chosen, that's when we'll come in and kind of do the whole suite from A to Z.
Amazing. Okay. So that kind of covers your clientele. The projects, I can do some quick guesswork, but would love to learn the scope of different types. I mean, we think of things like bridges. We think of things I guess in America, we think of Vegas with the casinos. Those are kind of implosion based. What are the different project scopes, maybe beyond just bridges or the casinos or anything? Just kind of paint that picture for our audience.
Yeah, I would say there are other, you guys have some amazing blasting companies right now in the US who we've kind of met and talked with and known some of the players beforehand because they've been up in Canada as well. And some of them will branch off to, rock blasting, trench blasting, road blasting, more construction-based blasting. At this time, our specialty is demolition blasting, and one of the reasons why is, the owner, Tristan, is a third-generation demolition guy, and like a lot of demolition guys, he was on a piece of equipment when he shouldn't have been at 12 years old, and he knows exactly what he's doing, and he speaks the same language as the main contractors because he's been there and done that. And so I would say our tactical advantage is his knowledge of the demolition business and then our application of explosives into that knowledge base. And so we don't really want to branch out at this point into we have the ability and we have some past experience for like trenching and that type of thing, but for the most part it is the bridges, the large complicated structures, the powerhouses, blast furnaces, mining structures, anything that's too tall or too complicated to take down with the conventional high reach or it's too expensive for top down style demolition.
Got it. Yeah, and I'm assuming too, it's almost like in the military, you think sometimes drones or robots or things are used. There's probably a safety aspect too in that, where it's like it's just not safe for humans, even with equipment, different mechanisms. It's not very easy to safely pull off unless they do it in a manner like with you guys. So very interesting. Cool. So let me ask this. Obviously your current book of clientele probably do it differently than others, but do you guys typically get reached out to when clients or potential clients are more in the bidding process? or is it something when they're actually, they're working the project and then they realize, oh no, we need a solution that we don't have in house, or we need maybe an expert on top of what our solution is? Do you find it's usually bidding, or it's during the project? Maybe it's a mix of both.
It's primarily during the bidding process because, again, quite often these are such large projects that, they need professional project management, which means they need to know what they're getting themselves into, or potentially, their losses could be catastrophic. So traditionally they know already that they're going to go with an explosive felling on at least a part of their project. And so they will bring us in, we'll do a site visit, we'll do our own measurements, our own reconnaissance of the site plan. The scope of the work is explained to us, and then we'll come back and we'll put in, a bid and a preliminary style, or how we want to do it, and then submit that to them for their quote, or their bid process on the main project, and so yeah, we're definitely ahead of the curve. We have had some what we internally refer to as 911 calls, where it's like, hey, we need you, can you come quick, type thing. And those are always fun and interesting as well, but traditionally it is a bid process, is where we come into it.
Okay, so would you guess the 911s are kind of 5 to 10% of the business, or even less than that?
I would say no more than 5% of the business.
Okay.
Normally that's when somebody's in trouble, something went wrong, or there was a partial collapse or something where it was unexpected. But this is not the part of the industry you want to do haphazardly, and we're cognizant of the fact that what we do, there's always a lot of oversight, government oversight, company oversight, safety oversight, which there should be. And so we're cognizant of that, and we will make sure that what we do is extremely safe, and we're comfortable doing it. And in fact, we certainly don't like to do this, and we don't do it often, but just recently we were approached on a pretty good sized project, and we, after a lot of talking, we decided to not submit a bid, because we just didn't like the way the project was laid out, and we didn't feel like it was necessarily something that should be done explosively. So we have to recognize that we have a business to run, and it has to continue to run in the future. So last thing we want is to do something that we don't feel comfortable with, right?
That makes sense. And it's beautiful too, because our clients in the demolition space, they will go to, certain cases, they won't even go to the estimate, but they will either say, hey, it's not a fit, we know someone else who'd be more complimentary, while they're on the phone or just discussing with someone. They'll go on the site and go, hey, unfortunately, it's not something we're willing to put our name on. Sure. Of course, there's always people who blow out bids where they'll do it like double the price or something like that. And they're like, hey, if this person's willing to take it, we're going to profit a lot. We're not going to love the job, but at least we're going to profit a lot, and they must really need us.
Yeah.
That's kind of fascinating. So I'd be curious, is there ever a time where because it is, so much so in the bidding process, let's say it's 2 or 3 companies bidding on a project at large. Do you guys ever have the instances where 2 out of those 3 will call you or reach out, and then you're like, ooh, how do you guys go about kind of helping both? Or maybe you just say, hey, one of the 3 called us first, the second one, unfortunately, we can't provide a bid?
No, I think the key there, Chayton, is to just make sure that you're upfront with, that the ethical thing there is just to be upfront that, we've been reached out to on the same project, and basically, providing the scope of work that remains the same between the 2 bids, then, our bid will be the same. So, when they're building their overall bid, it doesn't really matter if company A and company B have us if our price is the same. You know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, it's not a common practice where we are retained by more than one company on a bid. However, it has happened, and again, I think just ethically, you're just upfront about it, and our numbers are the same for both companies.
Got it. Makes sense.
Yep.
Are in that example, I know it's kind of rare, but I'm nerding out on this. I would assume sometimes the companies would try to sway how you're maybe doing things or pricing things. Has it ever been a conflict where it's like, hey, we want to give them both the same approach because that's our answer, and we want to give the same pricing because that's our answer? Have companies ever tried to tweak with that, where then it was a little bit different?
You know what? One of the most interesting things about being a demolition company and then an explosive subcontractor for other demolition companies is to see the strategies that they come up
Mm,
with. That to me,
right.
this is what makes the industry so incredibly interesting and unique and exciting. Is that I'm speaking tongue in cheek here, but there's really not a textbook on how to bring down a lot of structures. It comes down to past experience and your company's strategies and capabilities and equipment. So, we're not going to sit there and say this is the way to do it. I mean, we'll listen because everybody's got great ideas. That's why they're in business. So, you listen to what their concept is, and in some of these mega projects, company A will want to explode maybe 5 buildings on the same thing in 2 stacks, whereas company B says we can bring the buildings down safely with a different tactic, but we need the stacks to come down. Well, then you're not comparing apples and oranges in the bid process. But no, we definitely work in conjunction with the company with their overall strategies on the demolition project. And at the end of the day, we're there to serve their needs. So whatever they want from us, we'll put together a plan and then work together with them as the plan, comes to fruition.
Got it. Yep. So it is, it's open, honest, and it's a flat kind of, this is how we're looking at it. This is the pricing for said operation. However, of course, it's customized too, because
Sure.
maybe in certain instances, a particular company wants it or sees it a certain way. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool, cool. Question on the oversight. That word came up a little bit earlier. Where do you find the operation that you guys happen to run is more challenging oversight wise, in the US on projects or in Canada on projects? I'm sure it's case by case, but is there like an overall, man, one of these countries is more difficult on us than another country?
That's interesting because we're just kind of we're learning as we go, specifically in the US.
Right.
I don't. I'll go on the record kind of saying what we've experienced so far.
Sure.
Obviously, it's not written in stone, but what we've kind of seen a little bit so far is Canada is a little bit more regulated, however, less enforcement, if that makes sense. And the US seems to
Okay.
be slightly less regulated, but more on the ground enforcement. And so
Hmm.
that's at least what we've kind of seen initially. Like I said, we've only gone live in the US, less than 12 months ago. So, but we have bid on, half dozen to a dozen projects. So that's how we've seen it so far, but we're still growing we're still developing and learning as we go, but that seems to be for us how we've characterized it. Is there seems to be more on the ground enforcement of the rules in the US, but slightly less rules,
Hmm.
which is fine. I mean, both, I wouldn't say one is better than the other. Canada's population is significantly lower than the US. I mean, what are we at? Somewhere around 40 million, right, in this giant country. So there's not as many players, and I think maybe there doesn't need to be as much on the ground enforcement because it's more obvious with fewer players if somebody's doing something wrong or you're breaking the rules. So I don't know. It just seems to be what we've come up with so far. It's been a challenge for us a little bit to understand the regulations, but we have a couple US based employees who are very, very knowledgeable and in that whole regulations business. And we're just fall. That's the other thing is when you step into a new country, the last thing you want is to miss something and then find
Hmm.
yourself in a world of hurt or under scrutiny, right? So I'd say we're going overboard on making sure that we're in compliance with everything, right? Obviously.
Right. Playing it safe kind of thing. Just like with the
Absolutely.
operations themselves, it's like we're going to put some buffer in between getting the job done
Yeah,
and going above and beyond to
yeah,
make sure that there's everything's mitigated. It can't be perfect, but we're going to try to get it as close to perfect as possible. Where in other lines of businesses, they can just say, "Hey, let's get the job done. That's
yeah.
it. We don't need to make such a large buffer to make sure it goes as close to perfect as possible." Interesting. Okay. Well, what are some maybe FAQs, things of people that are not working with you guys yet, even some of them maybe that you wish they knew about your business, about what you guys do? What are some maybe misnomers or things that they just maybe need some clarification on that come up regularly that you could just shout at the top of the mountain and say, hey, here's 4 things or however many
Right.
things you wish was well understood by people that are currently working with you or need to be working with you guys?
Uh, yeah, really good question. I would say the number one, my personal number one pet peeve, if you will, is it's not even a pet peeve. It's just a cautionary tale. Is that explosive demolition can have, it does have a really bad ability to have a false positive success. And what I mean by that is legitimately, if you strap enough explosives onto a structure and push a detonator, the structure's probably going to fall down. However,
Mm,
that doesn't mean that A, your plan was good or sound or well engineered, and B, it certainly doesn't mean you did it safely. And so the the ability to have a false positive, I think, encourages people who don't have the technical expertise to give it a shot, especially on maybe smaller structures, local structures, and you'll get a rock blaster or somebody who is like, yeah, okay, if we, kick out these supports with some dynamite, the thing should fall over. That's really dangerous, and it really sets poor precedents within our industry, because one accident affects the entire industry. And so I guess the danger I see, the biggest danger with explosive demolition, is the ability for the building to fall down when it was done poorly, and then
okay.
everyone says, well, that worked, and they move on to the next one, but it wasn't done properly. And so I think what we try and do is to do a pretty in-depth post detonation investigation into how our design worked, and we look at it, as scientifically as we can. We've done a significant amount of R&D, which is unfortunately makes you no money. It's simply a cost, but we have gone out and partnered with some agencies, and done some research and development with the idea that we can lower the quantity of explosives that we use while still maintaining proper success. And so when you're able to do that, you make the entire process safer. And so we're constantly working with new ideas and coming up with new tactics on how can we make this safer. And one example, if you have the time for it, would be
Sure.
our water-based kick charge, which I do believe we are the only ones using. And I mean, you just look up some of our videos on YouTube and you'll see them. But when you sever a column, a support column, with cutting charges, with linear cutting charges, you're severing kind of like the top of the column and the bottom of the column, and then once the column's and you do that amongst the row of support structures, and then the building comes down and falls over. But the piece that you've cut out, you want to kick that out of the way slightly. And what we've come up with is a water-based charge, so that there's an explosive straw inside a container of water. And when the explosive goes off, it excites the water and it pushes the mass of the water against the severed part of the column, and it pushes it out of the way so that the building can have maximum velocity as it comes down, which is what you want. So that water is fantastic, because in the way we used to do it, and the way a lot of people still do it, is they'll put raw dynamite on that piece of steel and then cover it up with sandbags. That raw dynamite on steel we just didn't. We did it ourselves. I think it's kind of the industry standard way of doing a kick, but we just didn't feel comfortable with that. And there has been instances in the past where steel has ripped out once the dynamite detonates, and you have shrapnel hazards. And so we sat down and we came up with this new design. We actually worked in consultation with one of the science and technology universities in the US. We wrote a paper on it. We tested it, and we found that we can significantly reduce our explosives while gaining efficiency in that kick charge. And that's one example of how we try and reinvent ourselves to make our industry safer and more effective.
Yeah, that's amazing. The safety thing, it's so funny that you bring it up so regularly, because our best clients, usually the people that we attract to be on the show, that's kind of a big central focal point, is everything is safety, 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 which is funny because in a lot of businesses, obviously not in this industry, but in a lot of businesses, they're just like, get it done. Like, it's safe enough, whatever. We don't need to innovate. We don't need to do R&D, especially when it's purely a cost. Let's just keep doing it the way we've been doing it. Let's not ask any extra questions. That's cool that you guys are, you're on that train of really keeping things in mind and in perspective of like, the money and opportunities and growth come when we take care of the first priority, which is safety amongst getting a job done correctly.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Yeah. Very, very and cool. It's a great point. And if any of your listeners or yourself were at the International Demolition Summit, there was a speaker there, and I'll give this fellow credit. So there was a speaker there. It's online, his talk, and he was talking specifically about the explosive demolition industry. And that fellow is kind of a legend in the industry. His company is, I would say, legendary as well. Very well respected. Fantastic company. I admire everything they do. But he gave a speech that was pretty sobering, and which is, he's finding himself ending up in a lot of lawsuits over dust and over everything, basically. And his talk was very sobering, which was, I don't know how much, in 10 years, he even said, in 10 years, I don't know if there is an explosive demolition industry. That's how bad the litigation has got. So, I think that what that talk did for me was reinforce the fact that we're on the right track in trying to redesign how we do our tactics and how we do our strategies and how we do our designs in a safer manner. Because I think his warning is something that we have to listen to, but we still have to get the job done. So I like what we do. I like the R&D. It's expensive, but we've come up with some innovative stuff, and so far it's been well received.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's funny, a lot of things, I guess, all over the world, it's getting constrained by litigation.
Mm-hmm.
It's very kind of, I don't care what it is. It could be police enforcement. It could be food. It could be, there's a million different things, daycare, all kinds of stuff in this business, of course, too. Yeah, you guys are riding the right wave, but it's just amazing that, I guess, the lawyers got to make their money, the firms got to make their money, that kind of thing. But they're strangleholding operations to an extent where, what is the future? Of course, you guys and your peers, who follow that correct wave. But I mean, what would you do in the future with some of these things when they have to be dismantled and taken down if you don't have certain options? It's not like you're choosing explosives necessarily as, hey, we want to do that as number one, just do that and get it over with. That's not really what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And, it's like, it's got to come down somehow. I don't know if you litigate us to death over the dust cloud. I don't know how else you're going to bring it down. Some of these structures, there's just not a cost-effective way other than explosives because of the design of the structure. It's one of the reasons why the coal-fired power plants traditionally use an explosive toppling, is just the boilers are hung boilers at a height that is not safe to deal with them. And so there's no good way of bringing those down other than bringing the building down in one event, so You make a good point though, for sure.
Yeah, it's very fascinating. I mean, short of the lawyers, doing the work themselves one day, like if you guys know everything, and you're so smart,
Yeah.
come do it. Like,
Yeah.
start your own business in this world. Oh, wait, your peer is going to sue you. So like, I get we got to do things safely and smart. And of course, there are always going to be bad figures and bad actors in the space. However, I would say the vast majority of people in the demolition world, um, they're pretty good, reasonable people, and they're not getting certain jobs just because they're a bad guy who always cuts corners. That's
Yeah.
out there, but it's not like you're going to be able to stay in the business forever or for a prolonged amount of time, especially getting the higher caliber jobs that have explosions as part of the process. So that's very interesting. Well, I don't know. We'll keep, doing our best part. There's problems everywhere, and usually the problems you get paid nicely to solve them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any other bits? Of course, before we sign off, would love to find out how people can reach out to your team. But any other little bits you want to share with the audience before we hit that?
Well, it's interesting going. Yeah, one thing I would like to talk about a little bit is just our manpower and our team, which I find a pretty unique team. So, explosive demolition is an interesting marriage between somebody who is, I would say, I hate using the word expert, but an explosives expert, or somebody who is at least has a couple decades of experience using explosives, and somebody who is knowledgeable on demolition and how buildings are put together, but more importantly, how they come down. And it is that marriage between those two, and that it's not necessarily an easy person to find who has experience in both. And I think, well, we have people who don't have an experience in both, but we've married this together, and we've done it so with people who we're not a young crew. I would say, in fact, Tristan's the youngest, the owner, and
Oh, that's fascinating.
yeah, and he's not necessarily a spring chicken anymore either. He's going to probably yell at me for saying that, but I mean, we're an older group of guys, and we've taken people from other industries, police bomb squads, marine breachers, military backgrounds, who are military combat engineer type stuff, mining industry, and demolition industry. And we've taken those, and what I so enjoy about our team is that I think it has to do a lot with the fact that we are a little older, and we can sit around a kitchen table and discuss different ways of doing things, and we're bringing in concepts and ideas from different parts of the explosive industry, and then how to apply those, critically thinking how to apply those to the demolition, which is where Tristan and his knowledge base comes into it. Don't get me wrong, Tristan's been doing explosive demolition again since he shouldn't have been, at probably the age of 14. But it's interesting because we get a bunch of different views coming together, and there's never any criticism. In fact, we want to criticize everybody's concept so that we break it down to what will work in this particular job. And so I think that's been very unique, and it's probably what's driving our R&D. In fact, it is what's driving our R&D, is stealing or borrowing tactics, strategies, concepts, charges from different explosive industries and bringing them into the demolition world. It's been very unique, and quite frankly, I mentioned our engineer earlier, and Ray has been doing explosive work for well over 40 years. And he has said on more than one occasion, this is the most unique team I've ever worked with. He said, and it's a pure and absolute joy to do so. And I agree with him. We're not all necessarily demolition experts, but we all bring a unique part to this that make a pretty fun team to be around. And I think not just for ourselves, but also our contractors who are hiring us as well. So yeah, I want to give a shout out to our team and kind of highlight that. And I think that's what makes us a little bit unique. And And other than that, this is it's an interesting business. I appreciate you giving me some time on the podcast. And, if anybody wants to reach out to us, I'll just let you put my email in the the link at the bottom, because it's like all corporate emails. It's too long and wordy. But you can look us up at Rakowski Energetics or Rakowski, the Rakowski Group. And they're on the main webpage. There is a US based link there and some YouTube videos, etc. So you can look us up. Rakowski is RAKOWSKI. So Rakowski Group, Google it, Rakowski Energetics, either or. And then just drop us a line if you're at all interested in it, even if it's not a project. If you just want to talk this part of the industry, or you're interested in it, give us a shout.
Yeah, and preferably before the 911 call.
Yeah, exactly.
They'll take that too. But apparently it's a small subset of people who are doing that. But
right.
Yeah, if you could do it maybe a little bit beforehand, that would be great. But I'm
Great.
sure they'll take your call or outreach if you need help immediately as well.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome, Paul. Well, thank you for being on this podcast. And guys, thank you for listening to another episode of Demolition Success Secrets. Paul and I are signing off. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
That's a wrap for this episode of Demolition Success Secrets. Stay tuned and subscribe for more explosive insights from our upcoming episodes. Until then, continue to blow up your demolition business and make the competition rubble in your path.